So, faced with the question, where did they go next with this podcast? The guys were recently joined by legendary musical genius Bruce Dickerson, who's agreed to be the new producer of the Stack and Benjamin show. They were all excited to meet him.
Hey fellas, I'm Bruce Dickerson. Yes, the Bruce Dickerson. You have a dynamite sound, fantastic sound. I have only one suggestion. More cowbell.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and you know it's a great day when the Wednesday mentor is none other than the woman behind Money with Katie, Katie Gatti Tassin. Plus, in our headline, one truck is depreciating more quickly than ever. Which is it? How does depreciation work? We'll share a case study of depreciation in action. And you already know it's coming. I'm going to top this whole podcast with some absolutely riveting trivia. And now, two guys who are here to help you put away the credit card and stash some money in a Roth IRA. It's Joe and OG.
Hey there, Stackers. Happy Wednesday. We're so happy you made it. Sit back and relax because we are about to, light it up with the woman behind Money with Katie. Can't wait for that Mentor Wednesday. But first, let's meet these characters that are hanging out with me on this fine day. Mr. OG, how are you, man?
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Dude, is it exciting
First-time
now?
caller, long-time listener.
Is it exciting having a high school graduate in the family?
I mean,
No.
sure.
No, he said this before. He said, congratulations on doing what you were largely expected to do all along.
I mean, we're elbow deep in summer already, so that's the celebration is over.
I heard you telling your middle son while we were between recordings, congrats on being an upperclassman.
Yep. And he was like, whatever.
We've got,
Angry 16-year-old.
Is that wild how that happens? Just, life is serious, Dad.
I mean, kids don't realize that because they're just on the train, right? They're just in the flow. I'm just one more year of school. My God, this is never going to end. What's the big deal, Dad? Of course I made it from 10th to 11th grade. It's like saying congratulations on finding your exit from rush hour traffic. Like, God, that was going to happen eventually.
I made it. Well, still congratulations worthy to all the stackers that either are graduating or you've got kids graduating. Super exciting time of the year that we have just went through. Got to go to OG's son's party, by the way, Doug. That was fun.
Oh, you know what would have been really fun? Getting an invite.
Watching OG do keg stands at his kid's graduation party was pretty wild. And I never knew they could fill those things full of Woodford, but OG found a way to celebrate in the best way possible.
No, Joe, you've got me all wrong. I quit drinking. Like Billy Bob Thornton from Landman.
Stick with beer, you want something stronger?
I quit drinking, I'll stick with beer.
You know there's alcohol in that, right?
It's a Michelob Ultra. There's more alcohol in orange juice.
I ain't judging, buddy. I mean, I've been on the wagon 8 years. I'm just saying, drinking beer, still drink.
Well, I tell you what, bud. You watch me drink 6 of these sons of bitches, and I'll come back in here tomorrow night and drink 6 whiskeys, and you tell me if you notice a difference.
I'll take your word for it.
I got to say, Doug, I noticed a difference.
You know, Andre the Giant holds the record for the most beers drunk in one sitting in modern times.
Really?
Yep.
In
He
real
had
life.
119 beers at a bar in Pittsburgh.
6
Can't
hours.
figure out why that guy died young.
Right.
Wow. Holy moly. Well, we're not going to do that today. We're going to talk money with
That's what you think.
with Katie Gatti Tassin. Now, Katie's audience is largely women. Her new project is aimed at women. She finds a great way, though, to broaden that out for us. But a lot of this discussion is stuff that, frankly, in a lot of the books that I see come out, a lot of the things that I read presented in old tropes that really are not heavily researched. And I just have grown, just grown. I see a new work and I go, oh man, no. Oh man, no. Katie shines a great light on things like the wage gap and about women and consumerism, really diving into what we talked about on Monday. But today, she's bringing that all home in a way that I think you're going to find very inspiring, like I did when I started diving into this work. So Katie Gatti Tassin, she's our mentor. But before we get to Katie, we've got a couple sponsors who make sure this is free for all of our stackers. You're going to get some great audio and you don't pay a dime for it. So we're going to hear from them. And then from Money with Katie to Mom's Basement, Katie Gatti Tassin. And I'm super happy she's here. Katie's back. How are you?
I'm back. I'm so good. Thank you for having me back.
Mom has missed you. We've missed you. I'm super happy that you're here. But man, you've got a lot of balls in the air right now. You are going crazy.
Tell me about it. Publishing and writing a book while also doing my normal workload for Money with Katie and then like launching another show. And yeah, it was maybe not the best time management skills. So now my work ethic is having to cash checks that a very ambitious version of me wrote about a year ago.
You're like, what did I get into? What's going on?
But it's good. It's all good. I'm thrilled to be here and, living the dream, as they say.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into this topic. And actually, it's funny just from one creator to another. You know you're succeeding when you get haters, right? You know you're succeeding. And I love you dedicated your book to a hater.
A 2018 troll, yes.
Katie holds a grudge.
You know what? I do hold a grudge. I will never forget this person because it was my first experience with somebody anonymously online being rude to me. And it wasn't even on moneywithkatie.com. It was on my previous blog. I had this blog just for fun. I used it to post life musings, to talk about relationships, to talk about travel. And basically my whole world changed when I discovered personal finance, and I just felt so deeply in love with the topic and became pretty obsessed with it. And so basically overnight, all the topic subject matter on this blog transitioned to money. I think people like 10 people that I knew from college that read it were like, what is going on? Like, why is she writing so much about money?
Why she sell some money like it's Amway? Come on.
Yeah. And there was some guy who was publishing under an anonymous commenter name that would just relentlessly badger me on these posts and basically told me to stop. I obviously didn't take his advice, but as I was writing the dedication for the book, I was like, you know what? You know who this book is for? It's for that guy 7 years ago who was like, you should stop writing about money. You should really keep this to yourself.
When I opened it up and I saw that, I'm like, this whole thing's going to be badass. And it was. And it was, but that was great.
Thank you.
Something I didn't know about your history, and I always get so fired up about what inspires people. And as you know, Katie, from being in front of a group of people who rely on you, like you never know what you're going to write or what you're going to do that's going to inspire somebody. You got inspired going to a live event with some people. This is horrible, but I remember this book tour like it was yesterday, the one that you went to. Like,
really?
Lindsay came on the show.
Oh my God.
Manisha's been on the show before, but anyway, you were at an event for a fantastic book.
What a small world. Yes, my work friend at the time, one of the only young women that I had ever really talked to about money, because we were kind of in a similar position. I think we made like identical salaries. We had gotten credit cards at the same time. So it was kind of blind leading the blind, to be honest. But she was like, you should come to this book event. It's called Money Diaries. And for, I think it was $15 or $20, they give you a copy of the book. You get to go to this event and see these people speak. And there's also free wine. And I was like, amazing, I'm there. So we go together, and it was one of those things where typically I've been to things like this before, where I'm kind of like looking at the clock and I'm like, when can I get out of here? I want to go
also,
home.
Katie, it's a money event. Like, how exciting can this be, right?
Totally,
like, come on.
Especially because I knew nothing at this point about money besides the fact that I wanted to have a lot of it. So I didn't think I was going to enjoy myself very much, but boy, was I wrong. I sat in that crowd and I listened to Lindsay and Manisha speak, and I just thought, oh my God, this is fascinating and so powerful. And I can't deny the fact that I just have a very visceral attraction to this subject. And I want to keep learning about it. I don't want this to be the last thing that I attend or participate in that's personal finance for women. And so that really was a real turning point for me, which is exciting because I'm doing a book event on June 11th with Lindsay Stanberry now at the 92nd Street Y in New York. So it's going to be a very full circle moment for sure. But yeah, I think it's just really, really cool the way in which we can individually inspire other people with our work. And you just never know how your interest in something is going to change someone else's life or their career trajectory. So be loud and proud about it.
Absolutely. Whenever anybody asks me, like, oh, it seems like there's a lot of podcasts. I'm like, but nobody's heard you. Nobody knows your story. And man, if you can open up about your story, in Rich Girl Nation, you write that you polled your audience, you surveyed your audience. The average income is $180,000, median net worth $311,000. That is kick ass. It's fantastic. But it also leads to a question, which has frustrated me for a long time. When I look at our stackers, it's the same thing. It's people who are on the right path, doing well. There's this whole audience, Katie, that you and I need to reach. And it's so hard to reach those people. Like, how do you get them to go to the Lindsay Stansberry event? How do you get them to listen to Money with Katie or to read your kick-ass newsletter? Like, how do we get more people to actually pay attention?
Well, free wine got me, so we could start there.
A podcast with free wine would be.
It's a good question, yeah, because I think about the general population in a few different buckets. So for me, there is some portion of Americans in particular for whom all the good advice in the world that I have to offer them is probably not going to help them. I'm thinking of low-wage workers, bottom 25%. I can teach them about the 4% rule. It makes no difference because they need higher income, right? They need higher wages. They're probably not going to seek out this type of personal finance advice. They know it's not applicable. Then you have the people that I think will listen and read and, follow along now and who buy my wealth planner and the material really resonates with them. You kind of listed out some of the characteristics. They are often earning a lot of money. They're already on this path. They've seen it work already. So there's like a belief in the power of compounding and, the compound interest charts that I saw at 20 and was like, holy crap, I'm going to be so wealthy if I start doing this right now. But I think the toughest group to reach are those who are maybe in the 60 percentile to 80 group where they're earning enough to invest. They might not realize they're earning enough to invest. And so that gap, which I experienced personally when I was starting out, you don't think that it applies to you. You don't think it's applicable to you. That was something that I am very thankful for the financial independence retire early community for, is that really showed me that I did earn enough to invest. Even on $60,000 a year as a single person, I could invest. I just needed a plan. There are certainly people that I want to reach that I haven't yet. And I think the way that I have found potentially to do that is by speaking to the things that are happening all around them, speaking to the challenges of the economy, speaking to the real world and making sense of it. And, it's this sense of helping people who might not think this information is for them feel seen in some capacity. I'm not glossing over these challenges. I'm not saying they don't exist. The critiques that they may have are legitimate and real. And so here's what we can do about that effectively versus everything's fine. What's wrong with you? How have you not figured this out yet?
Right. Well, you clearly dive into some of these issues. I mean, a stat that you write, in mixed households, the survey of consumer finances, mixed sex marriages found that 56% of husbands were designated as most knowledgeable about household finances. So many of my friends are women, writing specifically to women, Katie. And you write that with all the kick-ass women that we have leading this charge, it ain't getting better. That was in 1992. It was 53% of households reported this. Now it's 56%.
Yeah,
it's actually, the statistic's getting worse. Yeah.
Yeah, it has. It's tough. And I think that I see kind of gender role orthodoxy and ideas about women's roles and what women should be doing or quote unquote supposed to be doing as very tied to these economic problems. There was some research that came out think in February, that showed that the number of people who believe, both women and men, who believe that women should, quote, return to their traditional roles in society has
how about that? How about the whole trad wife movement online?
Yeah, I mean, it's like doubled since 2022. So in a very short amount of time, we've seen this real resurgence in ideas about traditional femininity and masculinity. And if you can believe it, Joe, managing money is a traditionally masculine endeavor in this sphere of influence. So what I really wanted to convey in that chapter where I write about that, which I believe is chapter 3, Knowledge is Power, is that this trend is most alarming when we see it in households where the woman is actually the primary financial provider, where she is the main source of income and is still more likely to defer the long-term financial planning decisions to a male partner, often citing something to the effect of, well, I don't know enough to participate equally, or it doesn't come naturally to me. And something that I always want to drive home is, well, it's not natural for anybody. Everybody has to learn how to do this. Nobody comes out of the womb understanding how to build a properly diversified portfolio.
Right.
This is not something that, like, if
Welcome
you've always
to
had
the
a
efficient
reproductive
frontier, baby.
organs,
Right.
yeah, that like you're going to be, just more naturally good at this. So I want to reassure, and if there are, because I speak to these women all the time, that if that's you, which I have a feeling is probably not your listeners, but if that is you and you're reading this book, that you are assured that there really is nobody better than you to make these types of decisions about your long-term financial future.
It was so sad when I would walk into, back when I was a financial planner, and I walk into meetings, and generally it was the husband that would show up and he's like, yeah, she doesn't really care about this. I'm like, we're not meeting. They'd always be like, excuse me?
Good for you.
Well, because here's what would happen, Katie, is that he would die traditionally, but in some cases she would die and she's taking care of everything, or he's taking care of everything. And then, you know what? I didn't care about the gender role. If I'm your advisor and you don't know who the hell I am, and I'm the guy that knows more than you do about where your money is, it's wrong. It's wrong. And it's not going to work. So it was so frustrating. You begin the journey, speaking of that, by looking at your expenses, which is obviously the place to look. And you start where you were told to start, which was housing, auto expenses, groceries, and food. What did you find when you started looking at your expenses when it came to the, quote, big 3 areas?
Yeah, well, like you said, that is always the area that we tell people to start, because traditionally those are the most expensive things that any household is paying for. And so I followed that advice and I was like, that's funny. My housing is under the 28% benchmark. My car, I'm living within my means there. I'm good. I'm not driving a Lexus. I'm covered. Food spending, again, pretty reasonable. But as I did that personal finance audit and I got everything down on paper, there was something that jumped out at me that I had never seen anyone talk about in all of the personal finance dogma that I was intravenously, ingesting. And that was my beauty and personal care budget. And I was like, 10% of my income on beauty and personal, that's interesting. Brad and Jonathan didn't warn me about this one. Let me actually go back and recalculate that. I don't think that's right. So I tally it all up again. And it's like, oh, no, it is 10%. So at the time, I was spending around $300 a month on beauty and personal care. Now, granted, I lived in Dallas, Texas, which is very much a blonder and bigger the hair, the closer to God type of city. So I was pretty intense in my routines, we shall say. So I tallied all up. I'm spending $300 a month. I start thinking about my take-home pay and I'm like, whoa, I think I am like working for an entire month every year just to support all of these appointments. And that was a real aha moment for me. So I spent some time really thinking about this and experimenting with how much I'm spending on hair and nails and eyelashes and tanning and waxing. And I mean, God, you can spend 3 times that today with the way that cosmeceuticals have exploded, filler, Botox, you name it. I learned that at the time, even around $300 a month was about average.
I was just going to say that you found out that your experience wasn't abnormal.
Nope, it was very in line with the average. And so I sit down, I use this compounding returns calculator that I had recently learned how to use. And I find that, oh, wow, if I do this for an entire 40-year working career, I am giving up $1 million. That is a $1 million opportunity cost. And that was enough for me to be like, all right, yeah, that's not a trade-off I'm willing to make. I need to really sit down and think about this. And so I call that process the hot girl hamster wheel, because as your women listeners may well know, a lot of these things are almost coercive in nature. Once you get your hair colored, once you get your acrylics applied to your nails, these are things that if you do them once, you kind of have to keep doing them. Because if you stop, the grown out highlights look worse than no highlights at all. The grown out acrylics or gel manicure looks worse than nothing. So you kind of have to keep going. Thus the hamster wheel metaphor. And
right,
so
the dark stripe down the middle. Yes.
So you're familiar too.
Yes. Oh, I get it all the time. No, I'm kidding. But yeah.
The point is, there is an entire industry that is almost exclusively interested in marketing its products to women. And if you are a woman who is dedicated to financial independence, it's worth taking a closer look at how and why and what you're spending on these things. Because even beyond the financial ramifications, and this is, I think, the conversation people are more comfortable having, that beauty standards do psychologically and emotionally impact people negatively. So I'm basically just saying we should also be talking about how they financially impact you negatively. The economic negative impacts are arguably just as damaging as the psychological ones.
Well, it's just the realization, that there's this $1 million that I know I look pretty, everyone, but I don't even worry about that the average woman does. An average $1 million in net worth over my career. It's funny. We just had a discussion a couple of weeks ago with Bonnie Hammer, the vice chairwoman for NBC Universal. And she was talking about how they would take the executives to one of their theme parks, one of those Universal theme parks. And she got the idea for her book, The Lies Women Are Told at Work, Katie, on this roller coaster, the Velociraptor, when none of the other women executives would get on it because they were going to be judged by the way they looked. And you can't have your hair blown out, your mascara running, everything when you're an executive of a company. The rest of the roller coaster was all dudes who, just, hey, let's all get on the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Something I'd never even thought about. But even so, just this idea that much like in Deadwood, the old West, like the people making money in Deadwood weren't these gold miners. They were the people mining the miners. Like women are actively mined by these, quote, self-care companies to get into your wallet.
For sure. And that is a really important piece of this that I try to convey, is that I am not saying critically this. I think that a very common trope among women in money is they're like, oh, women be shopping, women be spending. That's not what I'm saying. I think that this is a really insidious industry and that women often participate and go along with it because they sense that there are very real ramifications for not adhering to these beauty norms. So it's not as though you just have a bunch of like frivolous spenders out here doing it for fun. I mean, we receive signals every time we leave our homes that the way that we look matters. And there's research about you're more likely to have mentors at work. You're more likely to have positive outcomes in the legal system. You're more likely to, find a partner if you adhere closely to this beauty standard. So the benefits are real, but I think the ROI is not good. I think that the ROI that you are going to get for the money and time you spend on this is actually going to pale in comparison to what you're giving up in order to get it. Beauty is the form of capital that women are encouraged to shamelessly pursue the most. And something that I always like to point out in hot girl hamster wheel conversations is that beauty is a depreciating asset. It will always require more money. If you are investing all your capital in beauty, you are guaranteeing a future of degradation, which, as we know, is not what happens to money. As you get older and that money gets older, it gets bigger and better for you. It's a balance. It's something that I think women need to be aware of and need to feel like they can and should opt out.
I was thinking, even as I was reading, even for the 55% of our audience that are men, people that are broke wear the brand. People that are wealthy own the brand. For women, I feel like this industry, based on what I read, is these people are getting money out of your wallet. Owning the company is the thing. But I'm wondering, how do you renegotiate that? Like, how do you change that when the standards are so high? Like standards that, to your point, it isn't like women can just go, okay, I'm not going to pay any attention.
Totally.
And tomorrow, then everybody's like, what happened to her? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so In chapter 1, we do a hot girl detox. That's what I call it. And this is the process that I followed. So I sat down, I listed all the things that I was spending my time and money on. I ranked them, power ranked them, most important to least important. My highlights were the most important to me. At the bottom of the list was like tanning and nails. And I just went one by one, and I took away one thing at a time, canceled the appointment, stopped buying the product, or canceled the auto ship on whatever it was. And I said, I'm just going to experiment with this. I'm going to get curious. I'm not going to hold myself to anything crazy, but I do want to see how it feels to revert back to my natural self, and let's see what happens. What I learned was that as I started taking things away, that yes, the financial impact was definitely felt, but the bigger impact was the amount of time I was saving. I had not realized how much time and energy I had been devoting to this. I think that curiosity and that experimentation is a really good place to start. There really is no hard and fast rule on this. I mean, now I'm at a point in my career and life where I could do all those things again and afford them, and it wouldn't disadvantage me financially. But I don't, because I am now happier without them. Like,
Yeah,
I
because
actually
why?
I have found that I enjoy not having to spend my time and energy on it, not just the money. B, my life really didn't change. I think that a lot of people, once they start paring back, realize that, okay, at the margins, maybe, but really, you will be surprised, I think, by how little that stuff actually matters. But I acknowledge that it definitely can be scary. It can feel risky, and it can feel vulnerable. There were women that I interviewed for the book who talked about how much money they had saved once they decided to go through this process, and it was really powerful. I mean, there was one woman who basically said, yeah, I stopped dyeing my hair. I just let my hair be gray, and I actually feel more confident now because of it, because I know that I am not contributing to a system that hurts women, that tells them that they have to look young to be valuable. And she said, I hope my son recognizes and takes on that lesson too. And so I think that it's deeper than money. And when we can see these systems for what they are and see through the matrix, it can feel actually quite empowering to choose not to participate.
I love the value discussion. What piece of this do I value, and which piece am I just running the hamster wheel? And by the way, I also love, and people haven't seen the book yet, but the fact that it's hot girl TM, the TM every time just gets me. Well, so next you tackle earning more money.
Yeah.
The thing I love about that is that when I was a financial planner, there were just times when it was an income problem, Katie.
Totally.
Where I'd look at my client and I'm like, you know what? We can pinch pennies. We can figure out what needs to go off the ship. But you know what? This is an earning thing. And of course, you then bring up the wage gap.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, and please hear me through, everybody, before you cancel me on this.
Okay.
I immediately went, and I'm not talking to you, Katie, I'm talking about our audience. I'm like, oh God, I'm sick of talking about the wage gap. And not that the wage gap doesn't exist, and not that there isn't this double standard. There's completely double standard. I'm like, what are Katie and I going to do about this? But like a breath of fresh air, you tackle this from a much more scientific place and dive in much deeper than these bull talking points that I see over and over and over. And by the way, you point these out in the book, which I was so happy to see. Like, okay, it's deeper than this. It's harder than this. So let's go there. And then I went from this is, oh God, to, oh yeah, let's do this. Let's start off with the good news. Things are looking up for young women right now. If you're a young woman in America, things are looking, I mean, not as rosy as they could be, but it's getting better.
It is getting better. The reason why I wanted to talk about the wage gap is because there is kind of a common misconception that what the wage gap data represents is that a woman and a man doing the same job will be paid differently. And it's not that that never happens, but that's not really the source of the problem. A lot of where this comes in is the way that women and men's lives unfold as they start families and as they take on caregiving responsibilities. So the gender wage gap is largest for women who are like in their 40s and 50s. It is true, right, that women spend less time doing paid work than men. I think around 57 minutes fewer per day. but they are spending about twice as much time doing unpaid labor in their homes. So that is going to contribute to an earnings differential. You're going to end up with fewer resources just by the very nature of, at the aggregate, how people are spending their time. I think Nobel Prize winning economist Claudia Golden has done some of the most interesting work on this and getting into the family dynamics that people are essentially looking at the incomes in a family and looking at the caregiving responsibilities and trying to assess the best economic path, the most rational path for their family to follow. And what she finds is that oftentimes, even if both people continue to work, one parent, more often the woman, will downshift a little bit at work. We'll take the less greedy job. Sometimes this is because she's already being paid less and the man's job is more demanding. Sometimes it is a matter of personal choice, but that over time is what leads to this disparity. And this is true even in cases when the men would prefer to be the primary caretaker or would prefer to be the caretaker that is home more often. That one of the interesting things that I found in the research that I did was that women are penalized when they negotiate for more money. Men are penalized when they negotiate for more time. So if you are a man negotiating for more flexibility at work because you would like to spend more time with your family, you are likely to kind of face the same pushback that a woman asking for more money might. So it really comes down to just behaving in gender incongruous ways. And I see that as really holding everybody back. But obviously, this is a book about money. So I'm going to focus on the group that is earning less because of this dynamic.
Sure.
Women do not earn less, as we've established, because they are bad negotiators. We know that that's true. But women can earn more by negotiating in ways that more effectively navigate that gender bias.
This was, if we hold on for just a second, because I do want to get there, but I want to stop on what you said, because I found this so compelling. Like, I've always heard this thing that now has become eye roll to me, which is, women just don't want to rock the boat, so they don't ask for money enough. Not true.
Correct.
And when women go to negotiate, just the fact, and you said this very quickly, and I just want to pause on this for everybody, women are penalized when they negotiate. They're less likely to get a raise, not by a ton, but by a little bit, which is the interesting thing to me, Katie, in your book was not that it's a high five when we first start working, everybody starts off as equal. And then for women, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Right.
These little tiny paper cuts, this little bit of friction here, a little bit of friction there that creates the more men at the top of the ladder, more women at the bottom of the ladder, more likely to get a raise, less likely to get a raise, more likely to get the promotion, less likely to get the promotion. This is not a thing that is a one, I missed out on the one big negotiation.
Right. The narrative is much more complex than it's often made out to be. And I think that Claudia Golden has, in her research, kind of says there is gender bias, like for sure. And in those negotiations, there are ways that you can navigate that. But I don't know. I think my perspective is that most people are doing their best and most people are trying to be fair. I don't think it is some big conspiracy, but I think that in general, like, part of the issue for everybody, not just women, though women stand more to gain from this, is degraded labor power. Like, women and men are going to have a harder time negotiating if they're individuals going up against a corporation than part of, say, a union. And we know that, like, all unionized workers earn more than non-unionized workers, but women especially, women in unions earn more. So I think, like, the wage gap, we'll say, is smaller within unions. So I think that even then, one of the takeaways that if we widen the aperture for this conversation and look at all the different factors that are going to depress wages for everybody, and particularly women, we get to have, I think, more interesting conversations about real world tactics that can help people improve this in their own lives. And I don't think that we get there if we kind of stay on the surface with the 83 cents on the dollar.
100%. And that's why I found this such a breath of fresh air, is that, to your point, and you said this earlier, there's these cultural norms and these biases, and we need to be aware of them. I mean, and then once we're aware of them, then we can focus on fixing it. You can't fix it unless you know how it's broken.
You have to understand it. You have to understand where it's coming from.
The fact that if a man goes and asks for more time to be at home, he's more likely to be told no, is really the counter. I mean, it's the exact point that you're talking about with wages. So you get tactical here that there's some ways that women can fight this. And a big one is you're more likely to score more money by looking at maybe a different firm that you don't work at yet.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple things. At the general level, the one piece of advice that I think every woman should know that I think about every time I go into a negotiation now is stop talking. And I know that that sounds really brash, but hear me out. Women are socialized, sometimes subconsciously, to put other people at ease and to make people feel comfortable, to be accommodating. That can be a nice trait, but when you're asking for more money, that is an inherently uncomfortable and somewhat adversarial conversation. And so often what they see is that women will make the ask, but then be more likely to kind of then like immediately begin negotiating against themselves to like make the conversation a little more comfortable.
Well, if you can't do that much, maybe just, and I understand that this might be a bad time.
I totally understand if you can't do this because I know the economy's bad, whatever. The best advice I've ever gotten was allow the uncomfortable silence, make the ask, say, what do you think? And then stop talking. That is a really powerful small change that no matter what the negotiation is for, what you're asking for, that is like a little rhetorical tweak that's worth making. But yes, I think the bigger picture thing and the more specific when you are trying to earn more money, you are probably going to be offered more if you switch firms. We know that this is true now, but that negotiating in a company or with a hiring manager where you don't have any track record, you don't have anything to point to say like, oh, this is why you should pay me more than you're offering me, that can be challenging because you don't really have anything to point to. So yes, in chapter 2, there are a lot of kind of a step-by-step of how to think about negotiating in that sort of situation when you are trying to negotiate outside of your existing company.
Man, and just shut up.
It's so simple, but yeah, every single time. I mean, it still is something that I have to really, I'm biting my tongue. Like I so badly want to be like, but I totally get it and it's fine if you can't. It's tough. It's tough.
I must be a woman at heart too, because I do the same thing. I'm like, well, if it's going to be, yeah. One other thing, tactically factors throughout the book, and that's this idea of automation, and I don't know if you actually state how big automation is, but it seems like setting up systems, Katie, really, really, really important for our average stacker out there.
Yeah, definitely. The chapter that I spend the most time getting into the strategy and laying out a very specific roadmap is chapter 6. It's called Don't Outlive Your Assets. It rests on the assumption that you are contributing in I'll say just like a dollar cost averaging way, right? That you're making the decision one time. You are identifying the amount. Hopefully you're maxing out a 401k and an IRA and contributing something to a brokerage account too. If you can swing it, that is how the strategy really comes together and how you benefit from the flexibility on the drawdown that I outline in great detail. But I think that the automation piece is really critical for people who earn a regular income. If you know how much money is going to be coming in every month, there's almost no reason not to do this. This was a critical piece, particularly in the beginning of my financial journey, where I had a system set up where I got paid on the 5th and the 20th. And I decided, okay, this is how much is going to go into this account. This is how much is going to go into this account. And the auto transfers happened on the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. And then the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. And it was like, whoosh, the money was gone before I had a chance to do anything with it. And so I had this friend who I think saw the progress I was making or was aware that I was really into this stuff, probably because of the blog. She was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you
Is this
look
the Peloton instructor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, it's so cool. It was such a wild moment. So she, whips out her Bank of America account and I'm kind of wide-eyed looking at those credits to the checking account. I was like, damn. Because at the time I made $60,000 a year. She made $80,000 a year. So I'm like, I know she can invest, right? Like we have very similar lifestyles. I'm investing a lot. She can definitely invest. And I'm just kind of blown away at how much money she has coming in. So I get her permission, right? We're sitting there with her laptop and I'm like, I'm going to set up some automatic contributions for you. Let me open a Roth IRA and a brokerage account for you with Betterment. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to know anything. You just have to not turn these off, right? That's all you have to do. So we set them up and I don't talk to her about it again. I mean, that was it. Like, we really didn't talk about it again.
One time, bam, done.
One time, done. 18 months pass because this was in 2019. So now we're like well into the pandemic. She's a fitness instructor, so that's not going super hot in 2020. And the PPP loan has run out, right? So she's like, I got to get money from somewhere. She texts me one day, that August, and she's like, oh my God, I have $30,000 in that account. She couldn't believe it. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We were both stunned. So I think the power of automation, of taking the willpower out of it, taking the discipline out of it, making the good decision once and then letting it run. I have seen that firsthand in my life and in others' lives, just absolutely transform their financial situation.
$0 to $30,000.
Crazy. 18 months. I mean, just wild. Wild.
So exciting. And you can do it too, stackers. And you know what? Katie has a new book that came out yesterday to help you. It is Rich Girl Nation and available everywhere yesterday. Katie, thanks so much for mentoring our stacker family today. I super appreciate everything you do.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. It was a pleasure as always. And read Rich Girl Nation. And for the 55% of your listeners who are rich boys, give it to your wives and girlfriends or your daughters.
Perfect gift.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. And as we draw closer to Independence Day, I remember my first day of independence. I was 18 years old and ready to rumble. Sadly, the El Camino ran out of gas as I rumbled down the road, and I had to walk back and ask Joe's mom for gas money. But then, I was independent, baby! Until I realized I didn't have any money for food. So I went back to Joe's house and asked Joe's mom for an egg salad sandwich, which, you know, when you think about it, it's also a chicken salad sandwich. Then she helped me place an ad in the paper, and Joe just got it.
And I'm wondering which sandwich came first.
And then Joe's mom, she helped me place an ad in the paper, and I ended up in a rewarding job working with juvenile delinquents. I just stood on the corner and told them when the cops were coming. Oh, they paid me handsomely. Anywho, enough about me. I was just thinking that way back on today's date in 1776, the Continental Congress created a committee to draft the Declaration of Independence. Here's maybe the hardest question we've done that doesn't happen on a Friday. Name someone on that committee not named Jefferson, Adams, or Franklin. I'll be back right after I go fold Joe's mom's laundry. It's laundry day! Hey there, stackers. I'm laundry sheet lover and guy who can fold with the best of them. Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Actually, I can't. I can fold the crap out of stuff. I'm good. Laundry day. It's the only day you can say, I love the smell of this day. Fresh, clean clothing and everything all neat and tidy. Let's tidy up today's trivia while we're at it. On today's date, way back in 1776, the Continental Congress created a committee to draft the Declaration of Independence. Name anyone. Anyone on that committee not named Adams, Franklin, or Jefferson. You can't do it, can you? It's impossible. The answer? There were two. Roger Sherman and Robert R. Livingston also served on the committee, which I've heard from a reliable source didn't have a single PowerPoint presentation and whipped up a completed document in only 17 days without ChatGPT. How the hell did they do that? Kids, there once was a time when people wrote for themselves. I know, they were total ninjas. It's like a superpower. And now to today's headline with Joe and OG.
That is amazing.
No PowerPoint.
And the fact that not that there were two people on that committee that largely have been forgotten, Doug, but second, no PowerPoint. Like, how do you get through that?
Well, I don't know how anybody was able to synthesize an idea without a PowerPoint created by like a junior analyst that they're getting billed for like $280 an hour.
Big thanks to Katie for joining us, and the Hot Girl Hamster Wheel and women taking money from women in the name of Doug. You deserve the highlights. You need highlights in that hair.
Oh, I've got highlights. They're the wrong color, but I've got highlights already. I got
Doug's
more
nickname
highlights
in
than
college was Hot Girl Hamster Wheel.
It was. The question we always ask Doug.
Got that right.
The question we always ask Doug is whether the carpeting matches the drapes.
There's no carpeting.
And I just threw up in my mouth.
Have you heard of manscaping?
No. And we're done.
It's all hardwood floors.
Let's go into our headline.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Well, we're seeing depreciation in action, gentlemen. OG, this idea of depreciating assets. Take us through a little one-on-one for maybe our younger stackers. How does depreciation work?
Well, what are you talking about? Like in what context?
Yeah, just when you depreciate an asset, you know?
You're talking about like on your taxes?
Yeah. How does that work?
Well, you're talking about a business owner who has acquired something related to their business that has to be spent over time. I mean, if you're a business owner and you have you have to buy something, or you have an expense in your business, it has to go in one of two categories. It's either something that's consumed immediately, or it's something that by the IRS standards is consumed over long periods of time. So like if you, I mean, nobody does this anymore, but if you bought a photocopy machine or a computer, a desk, or a piece of equipment, like that's usable over a long period of time. If you buy a ream of paper, that's consumable. You're going to use that right away. And so the ream of paper is an expense. The expense associated with buying the printer, or the expense associated with buying the machinery, is consumable over long periods of time. So the IRS has a schedule that says, hey, this piece of equipment was 500,000. You get to write 100,000 of it off every year for 5 years, or you write it off over 27 years or over 15, or whatever the schedule says. Every type of property is a little different. On occasion, there's programs that allow you to accelerate that depreciation. So you can do 2 years at one time, 3 years at one time, all the years at one time. But the downside is that when you sell the property in the future, you pay income taxes on the difference.
On all of it. So instead of waiting for later to take all that income tax goodness, you're able to get it a little bit at a time throughout the life of the product.
Yeah, you can, which could also be bad, depending. Yep.
Sure. Yeah. No, I can see how it's a great thing today, but then in the far future, you know, I mean, at some point you got to pay the piper, right? You're just like, okay. It's funny when we talk about depreciation. The reason I want to bring that up is that there truly are two different things that we talk about. We use the same word. Business owners use it, and depreciation can be great on your taxes, but also things lose value over time. And so it becomes worth less over time. And so you've got depreciation that might be good today for some people, and depreciation that's maybe not so good if you're on the consumer side and your asset depreciates. It just isn't worth what it used to be worth.
Yeah, like a car or something.
You know, and the people that see depreciation the most are early adopters, I think, because early adopters often, OG, have to pay a premium for that thing. So that means, you know, they're not making a ton of them. It's not proven yet. So then we pay a big high fee for that. And then if the product doesn't take off the way that we thought, then we end up with depreciation that's higher. And that's the case here. This is from the website electric.co that looks at a lot of different electric vehicles. Tesla just started accepting Cybertruck trade-ins. And man, OG, the depreciation for the early adopter on the Cybertruck, not looking good for the Cybertruck owners. 40,000 people converted their reservations into orders. There was 1 million reservations originally. People paid $100,000 for their Cybertruck, and Tesla's offering $65,400 for it, a 34.6% depreciation. Now, I don't really want to talk about Tesla, but I do want to talk about just early adopters in anything, OG. This is kind of the cost of early adoption of any product, is that you could get hammered on the depreciation side for a variety of reasons. But early adoption, it comes sometimes, I think, with a big price tag like we're seeing here with the Cybertruck.
Yeah, this is true for technology. It's true for consumer goods. It's not surprising for cars, obviously, you know.
Sure.
The old adage of, you know, the car loses 20% of its value when you drive it off the lot, you know, right away. So I think people aren't surprised by that. I think people are surprised by the fact that it goes down so much so quickly, because there are other instances, especially with vehicles, where vehicles maintain their value
for a longer period of time.
And I was just doing some Google searching on this because, you know, we're kind of thinking about William and cars and that sort of thing for him. And I just typed in, like, what is the most value car out there, value truck or whatever. And it's a lot of Toyota stuff, right? It's Toyota Tundras and Tacomas in particular, top 1 and 2. You buy a used one of those for 10 grand and sell it in 10 years for 10 grand, like or 20 or whatever the number is. Like they seem to hold their values for a long time. And I guess that's just a reflection on, to your point, the length of that product being around. It's not a new thing. It's a truck that's been around for 50 years.
Yeah, it's already been proven reliable. And I feel like for some people, this is what we were getting at on Monday with consumerism. And really, OG, you made a good point when you were like, for you, the tickets that you bought were for whatever game was not based on showing you that you have a cool new thing. But if you're going to get on the cool new thing, and it is to show other people that you got the cool new thing, in a lot of cases, look at the Apple headset that they are just retiring, and Tim Cook and company are now saying they're going to redo that. But remember how cool those advertisements were?
No.
And then when you saw with people on there,
they were never cool.
Yeah, you talking about the VR, or are you talking about the over-the-ear headphones?
Yeah, the Vision Pro,
VR,
where you can see everything. But I saw these two dudes sitting at lunch together, and they're both wearing these headsets. Like, what are you doing? It just, and yet when you first saw the commercials, it looked really, really cool. And now you already know, OG, 2 years from now, nobody's gonna be able to get rid of that thing.
Yeah, I never thought they were cool to begin with, so I didn't think that when I saw them. That's the cost of the new, right? I mean, Oculus, if you're looking at technology, the little Google Vision, Google Glasses or whatever they had, even iPhones when they first came out. I mean, look at all the upgrades that happen even now. You go, they can't get a chip that's faster than the last.
Yeah, you only have the 5? What are you doing? Like, what kind of dinosaur are you?
Maybe I dozed off for a second, but why are we talking about this? Like, how does this relate to people's long-term budgeting and spend? Like, let's make this real. We're talking about depreciation. How do we tie this into either our investment strategies, our vision statement, or our day-to-day finances?
Well, 2 things. Number one, we discussed there is 2 different types of ways to think about depreciation. If you're a business owner, this can be a great write-off on your taxes. But if you're buying into a new technology, we talked about consumerism, there can be a monster cost. And I think when we're looking at the new, we got to know that if the new isn't going to be the hot thing 3 years from now, I'm going to pay this huge cost up front for something that I might not have valued the way that I thought, or there's a cost attached to that valuing the new.
Yeah. So it's like buying Rivian stock. When I bought Rivian stock and I thought it's the hot new thing, when that thing IPO'd, I'm like, how can this not win? Tesla was going crazy at the time when Rivian came out. And I liked a lot of the intrinsic value of and the fundamentals of that business at the time. I paid a price for that being an early adopter and how that stock depreciated.
Look at it as an example. Like I've got the Sonos system, and Sonos completely abandoned their old system. Goes, you know what? We have a new one. I had like 8 of those speakers. And now trying to get rid of those speakers that are barely supported by the company, they actually made an app that if you've got just legacy stuff that you can still use it. I don't know how long that's going to be supported. But I think to really put a point on this, which I'm glad you brought that up, Doug, is if you're not thinking about depreciation when you're buying the new thing, when you're buying into technology, you're making a mistake. There was also a lawsuit, Doug, that you might have seen where video game players were suing a company because the makers of the video game, The Crew, I believe it was Ubisoft, they just decommissioned the game. And these players the only way to play it is online. Like, wait a minute, you sold me a good. No. You look at the ULA. Isn't that what's called? The ULA, the user license agreement.
Yeah.
User license said, no, you don't actually own this game. You were leasing the game. You were buying the right to play the game, and now the game's gone. So you paid $60 for this thing that was going to last 5 years, and now it's gone.
Right. Nobody reads those.
I thought this was a good headline, specifically for a week when we're just talking about consumerism. I will link to this in the show notes at stackybenjamins.com. Doug, out on the back porch, man, we've had a lot of great discussions around some of our previous episodes. It was funny. I was chatting with a couple stackers. One who told me, stacker Jason, who told me specifically, he's like, I didn't used to care about theme parks, and now I get excited every time Robert Niles is on the show. So another great appearance by Robert Niles a few weeks ago. That was on Monday of that week. And on Wednesday, a lot of people, a lot of chatter around the discussion we had on the J.L. Collins episode, which, Doug, I think you might have in front of you.
I do. Yeah. We got a great post in the basement from David Berman, who's a rising contributor. Congratulations, David, on being named a rising contributor. He says,
by Facebook.
I love them. Yeah. It's quite an accomplishment. I'd tell your mom. I love the most recent episode you guys just did with JL Collins. Both segments were great. Probably the best and well-rounded episode in a while. Love the interview with JL. Haven't heard the minister and monk story before, but I've said it for a long time that the parable of the fisherman and the businessman changed my life. No joke. I saw the story on a sign in a Jimmy John's in college, and it changed my perspective in the course of my life.
If it's on a wall of a Jimmy John's, it must be life-changing.
I mean, we can kind of make fun of that, but on the other hand, you never know when inspiration is going to hit you. It could be a bumper sticker that just catches you at the right time because of the other stuff that's happening in your life. And I think it's pretty awesome that, he was in something as innocuous as a sub shop and found something that changed his whole outlook on life. He goes on about that. But then in his next paragraph, he says, in the Better Call Saul segment, I also thought it was a great discussion and deep dive. I agree with your answer completely. I'm amazed, though, that not once during your answer did any of you say the words market cap or market weighting.
We were talking about, for people that don't remember this episode a few weeks ago, we were talking about the efficient frontier and talking about getting more, a little more scientific with your investing. And the reason we had JL Collins, which was really for people starting out. And then I love the fact that our color that day was for people that need to be more scientific, which is when your portfolio is a little larger. So we didn't talk about market cap or market weighting.
No, but I will say, as I listened to that episode in its finished form the other day when I was out hiking, I did love that we got almost prescriptive. We got detailed. I loved that deep dive in that Better Call Saul segment. But there was a major problem with David's post here, and I called him on it. I don't know if you saw this, Joe, but as I read through it, and I thought this was really nice to hear. Thank you, David. Love the detailed sort of critique, and because it was positive, definitely loved it. So he kind of broke it up. The beginning of it was just like the show structured. The beginning of this review was also how, it was the interview with JL Collins, which was an amazing interview. That guy is great to listen to. And then he jumped right to the Better Call Saul segment. I'm like, wait a minute. In between there is my trivia.
Oh my God.
So I'm like,
time to move on.
Yeah. So I'm like, David, I replied to him. I'm like, there seems to be something missing in this post right about here. And I pointed an arrow to the white space between the two. David, the ball's on this guy. David says, I love you, Doug, and I think your increased participation in the show has made it substantially better over the years. And here's where it drops off a cliff. But I still skip through your trivia every episode except for on Friday, buddy.
Oh, my goodness.
You're dead to me, David. You're dead to me.
See. Well, a little something for everybody, apparently.
You just put a huge smile on Joe's face by saying that, David.
No, because I often write the trivia. So screw you, David. Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for the great discussion and the kind words. Lots of people wrote us about JL Collins, and that was great to see. And it was great that we finally got to meet the guy after all these years. Finally got to have a sit down with JL. You can find that just the week before Memorial Day, Monday, Robert Niles, and Wednesday, JL Collins. That's going to do it for today. Big thanks to all of you for listening. If you know somebody who really might be spending too much money, I think today's episode, Monday, might be good ones to point them toward. So if you've got a friend, go, hey, listen to these two. You don't got to tell them, hey, is that really something that you wanted to buy? Probably don't say that. Just say, oh, I listened to this great podcast. So thanks to everybody who's done that, has done that as well. Doug, you're going to wrap up, though. The big three.
Are you sure you need to buy that new expensive pocket knife?
Why don't you listen to this episode first?
Yeah. That's going to go over as well as I'd like to talk to you about the way you parent your children. That's probably how well that's going to be received.
I think the kinder, gentler way is just say, I got a great podcast that you might want to listen to. All right.
Right.
Doug, what are the big three things on our to-do list after today?
Well, Joe, first, take some advice from Katie. How much are you spending on consumerism? Decide what truly lights you up and spend more in those areas, but cut anything that's not serving you. Second, thinking about buying that quirky car or electric artwork. Values change with time, not just based on the value of the piece, but also on what's going on in the economy. Keep your investing game solid with more reliable funds, especially if you're counting on them for financial independence later. But the big lesson? If you're gonna ever help me fold t-shirts, learn to do it the proper way. If you put the crease down the middle of the shirt, it's gonna show up later when you wear it. Come on! It's basic. folding people. Some of you have clearly never worked at a Gap in the summertime. Oh, I did. It was the worst job I've ever had. 6 weeks in a Gap. Oh, and all I did was stand there with this little folding board. And you got to fold the shirts over the board perfectly so they all stack perfectly. Oh, my God.
Have a fake smile and go, welcome in.
Yes, I did.
Welcome in.
Yep.
And while in the background, you've got...
Thanks to Katie Gatti Tassin for joining us today. You'll find Katie's new book, Rich Girl Nation, in our Stacking Benjamins bookshop. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. Hold on, we have a bookshop?
Oh, hey. All the cool authors are there.
You don't have room for an office for me? I'm still over by the water heater, but we've got a bookshop now?
Time to move on.
It's probably like a cafe in the back and cool music.
With music going, and the baristas are going, welcome in.
Berets. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
The trivia question inspired me to remember this bit from Saturday Night Live, not about the Declaration of Independence, but rather about the Constitution and some of the amendments to the Constitution. I don't know if you guys have heard this before.
And so we are resolved. The First Amendment to our Constitution is as follows. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, of abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Well done, gentlemen, the First Amendment. All right. All right. Now, what shall we discuss next? What is the second most important principle of our nation?
Guns.
Excuse me?
Guns.
I don't hate that. Well, I do. It's ridiculous. So, what is your name?
Matt.
Matt what?
Matt, don't you worry about it.
Well, Matt, what will posterity say of us if the second right we enshrine in this document is simply guns?
That we don't play.
Damn, that's actually kind of sick.
Yes. No. The idea is ludicrous.
Wait, now hold on. I mean, we did just make a law that said anyone can say whatever crazy stuff they want, right? Maybe this gun thing would kind of balance that out.
Bingo.
Okay, yes, but by the same token, wouldn't having a gun embolden people to say crazy stuff as well?
Bro, what?
Yeah.
No.
What?
Make that make sense.
Gentlemen, we cannot just have an amendment that says guns. What about guns?
Having them.
Ooh, love it. Smart.
Like, who is this guy? Why isn't he running this?
Matt, I am open to discussing guns for a later amendment, but I must insist we move on to a more pressing concern.
You're screaming. So angry.
Sir, where are you from exactly?
America.
as he's lighting a cigarette with the candle. He's just got like a cigarette. He's got glasses on. He kind of puts them down.
Is this Chappelle? Was that Chappelle?
No, it's Walter.
I didn't
Goggins,
recognize
maybe?
any of those voices.
Who was the guest? I remember it sounded like Mikey. Mikey, what's his name?
You do kind of wonder how that went down, right? I don't know. They're just like sitting around going, well, this is great and all, but we probably need to make some changes right away. Like how did that go? How was the conversation? Just like he said, right? This was a very important First Amendment to our great Constitution. You could rattle off. What is the next one?
Guns.
Are we sure that's the second most important thing?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Mikey Day.